So, hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic edition of Sphere of Being, the podcast which is all about caring for those who care for others. And today we have the most amazing special guest, Kay Johnson, yay! Who is all about gut health. She deals with hypnotherapy. She's got an MBE for her services. She's just an amazing lady. And as the gut is the key indicator of all of our mood and our thoughts, etc., what better way to have a discussion on this so that we can all think, are we being good to our guts? Are we leading from our guts? Are we acting from what our gut's telling us? Because that's an important thing as well. So, Kay, thank you. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to see you as well, Deborah.
Great.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. And so what I'd love you to do, you're a very interesting person. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about your background, your story, perhaps how you came into this wonderful world of gut health and everything to do with health and wellness. And just let us know what really motivates you and your passion, and perhaps a few words of wisdom.
So, yeah, well, I was brought up on a farm in Lancashire, a small farm in a little village. And I don't think that I realised at the time how lucky I was. So when I look back, I really did have the most ideal childhood. It was just one of being outside all the time and then having animals around me. And what the main thing that I didn't appreciate was that there was good food around, and we didn't have a lot of money. But my dad, we had a farm, we had some pigs for a while, and we had some cows, and we used to grow things. And my dad did a lot of bartering. And my mum used to have cooked meals on the table every day. And as a family, we sat round the table and ate together. And so there was always good food, always good home cooked food. And it wasn't until I moved away in my teens that I realized that everybody didn't have that privilege. And I went to university and I lived in London for a while. And there were times when I didn't have a lot of money, but I did focus on food. So that was always my priority. And when I started to get out there into the world, I realized that not everybody had that privilege, and that there was a lot of poverty and a lot of people who didn't know how to cook, didn't know how to budget, couldn't afford to buy ingredients, the ingredients that I could buy. And so after university, I studied nutrition, and after university, I started managing food poverty initiatives I moved up to Scotland, and then I worked for a while. I did a little bit of work in Australia and worked in different parts of the world, managing nutrition programs in disadvantaged communities. And from my travels, I gained a lot of experience of understanding different cultures. And then I gravitated back towards Lancashire about just over 10 years ago. And I set up an organisation called the Larder, which is Lancashire and Region Dietary Education Resource. And since then, I've been running nutrition programmes across Lancashire, mainly focusing on trying to empower people in disadvantaged communities and give them skills and the kind of expertise that they need to be able to cook from scratch, really. And it's been amazing, and I really love that, and I really love working with people in different communities. My belief is that the strapline for the Larder is food fairness for all. So I believe that everybody should have the opportunity to eat well.
Thank you, Kay, because this is such an important topic, because perhaps you could let us know a little bit more about what happens in our bodies if we eat low nutritious foods, things like junk foods, etc., to that of nutritious fresh vegetables, and what I call kind of clean food that hasn't been mucked about with chemicals and genetic engineering. What do we see happening in our bodies, and as a result of having good food versus the junk food?
Well, I think what we're finding out more and more now is about the gut bacteria, the microbiome that it's called. And so we're not only feeding ourselves, we have to feed the organisms that live in our gut. And if we can keep them happy, it's much easier to maintain good health. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, and there's people with conditions that aren't necessarily affected by the gut. But I think for most people, if we have a healthy gut, we have good overall health. And what happens if we don't feed the bacteria in our gut? What it really likes is lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of fiber. And if we don't do that, then we start to see conditions. And it's not just things like IBS, which is something that some people experience. And it's like a range of gut-related symptoms. Lots of things, like even depression is affected by our gut. What I'm starting to understand now is, see, when I did nutrition, I studied nutrition in 1991. I did my master's, and we knew a little bit about the gut then. But there's been so many technological advancements over the last 20 or so years that we now know a lot more about it. So I've had to kind of relearn a lot of things. And although the healthy eating messages are the same, it's kind of understanding a little bit more about why eating more healthily is important. And what we know is from various research is that processed foods aren't recognized in the same way by the gut as fresh, healthy vegetables and things like nuts and seeds and things. And it's so the processed food is not, even though say cereals and things like that, they might say, oh, it's fortified with vitamins and minerals. The body's still not recognizing that, so it's not being processed in the same way. So those vitamins and minerals are kind of pointless, really, because they're not benefiting us. And it's like what's good for us is kind of good for our the organisms in our gut.
This is a very interesting concept that I hadn't thought about before. In what you're talking about is feeding the bacteria, because I always thought the bacteria fed off what we put in. And now you're saying feeding the bacteria, which is a different way of looking at things. And you're talking about before, when you talked about depression can be linked to the health of your gut. Now, what does actually, first of all, what does a healthy gut look like? How will we be feeling? What will be signs for us that we know we've got a healthy gut?
Well, one of the things that I ask my clients about, one of the first things is I ask them about their bowel movements. And that's really important. And so a healthy bowel movement is where you're going to the toilet maybe twice a day, and we kind of know. I don't think I need to sort of go into too much detail. You know yourself, really, whether that's healthy. Some people experience constipation. Some of my clients that come to me, they're passing bowel movements too regularly, and so there are kind of different symptoms really of an unhealthy gut.
Yes,
And
and
that's the main one.
thank you, would we, as women, we're always trying to, well, I am, and I know a lot of other women are, like a flat tummy, in the sense that it hasn't got to be like, you know, washboard and all that, but I think it's a definition of not being bloated. Does that have something to do with your gut health?
It absolutely does, because if the bacteria, it's a term that we call a dysbiosis. So if the bacteria, there's a kind of like an imbalance of the organisms in our gut, gas can be produced, and that's what causes the bloating. So it's almost like a byproduct of the organisms that are more prevalent than they should be.
Right. Now that's interesting. And then with the types of food, you say they like fresh fruit and veg. And sometimes for people, that's quite difficult to access. It can be relatively costly. Things are going up in the supermarkets like you wouldn't believe in price. Are there other forms like tinned produce or frozen produce that you would say is okay as an alternative?
It's a good point. I'm really glad you raised it. Absolutely. So, I mean, ideally, you know, we'd all be eating fresh vegetables out of our own gardens. I mean, that is the best way. But not everybody can do that. I can't do that. So I recommend any way of getting fresh fruit and veg in. So whether it's tinned, dried, frozen, it's all good.
Great. I'm glad you said that because, again, people in busy households, that whole thing about fresh veg and it kind of wilting in the fridge or wherever you keep it. I have heard that sometimes frozen food is actually fresher than the actual fresh food that we get from the supermarket aisles.
Well, that's a good point because sometimes it's travelled for miles and halfway across the world, and all of that time, the nutrition, the sort of the nutrition in that vegetable is deteriorating. So the fresh produce is quite often frozen straight away, very soon after being harvested. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's difficult for people to store. You know, not everybody has fridges, or you know, not a lot of space in the fridge, and or they don't have an opportunity to go shopping a few times a week. So yeah, I think it's good to have whatever you can, you know, however you can get fruit and veg into yourself and your families. Then yeah,
And that's interesting what you're saying about the family, because moving on to that side of thing with depression, I talk a lot again about in business how to be successful. And it's not all about working hard, it's about making sure that we're optimized as beings, as people, as either in our minds or in our bodies, etc. And to have things like the depression, anxiety, I call it a bit like brain fog, where you just know you're not with it completely. What would you say? How could you help naturally? Obviously, if there's something you need to go to the doctor for, please go to the doctor. But if there's something which you think actually I can help myself by a diet, how does that relate to the things that I've talked about, perhaps with depression that you mentioned?
So, yeah, that I really do believe that there's a very strong link between mental health and what we eat, but it isn't always the case. I mean, there are factors in life that affect our mental health, and that's, you know, food can only go so far to be able to help people deal with life issues that come our way. But serotonin is something that it's like our kind of it's our happy drug that we produce naturally, and a lot of that is actually produced in the gut, and a healthy gut will produce the right amount of serotonin. And again, that can get disrupted if our gut isn't getting the foods that it really does need. So there are ways that we can help that along by trying to, you know, eat more healthily. And the things like, you know, there's been research done that fish oil can help with depression, and B vitamins, and people quite often take supplements for that. But if you can get it through the food, if you can eat a healthy diet, then that the body recognizes that much more than supplements, and it's able to process it more easily than supplements. If not, if you can't, then obviously supplements are needed in some cases. But you know, so it's worth, you know, vitamin D as well. Vitamin D has been shown, like, it really can affect the mood if you don't have enough vitamin D.
Very interesting, because you talk about, and I'd like you to just explain, you're using the word the gut recognizes the different types of food that we're giving it. What do you mean by recognize?
I suppose what I mean is that the bacteria are able to use that food to kind of break down, because what it does, the bacteria is helping in the digestive process to help the food kind of go through our systems smoothly, but also it helps to develop to manufacture some of the vitamins that we get from the food.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. So it's kind of like that process that is a natural way. It's what we were designed to put into our bodies. I heard somebody say once about processed food that if you can't buy the ingredient on its own in the supermarket or in a shop, don't eat it. Because if you don't know what's in it, if you can't understand what's in it, your body can't understand it either. And it's kind of like that process is so much chemical driven, I'm guessing, that is it right actually to actually call it food in that sense? Because maybe we should think of something else to call it, maybe.
That's a really good way to look at it, when you do look at ingredients and you think, I have no idea what that is. So if you tried to recreate that food, you couldn't. So I think that's, you know, it's a good rule. Sometimes we have to, sometimes that, you know, it's impossible to go. I've just been away for a few days and I needed to eat, and I've had to go and grab a sandwich out of the shop because that's the only thing that's been there. Sometimes, you know, we have to, and it's better than nothing. So I think we have to be careful that we don't kind of demonize anything, and there's not a kind of fear of things. Sometimes it's okay to have these foods, but in general, I think what you're saying is that, you know, it is a really good way to actually look at the ingredients and then maybe compare that to something that you do recognize.
Absolutely. And if somebody was thinking, right, I'd like to make a difference to what I'm doing at the moment. Where would you say to start? Because getting on track with things can sometimes feel a bit of a minefield, especially when, and I know this from experience, our taste buds get used to liking things that perhaps aren't as good for us as they could be. And then when we put the natural alternative, it doesn't taste very good. It until our taste buds change and get used to it. So how do you think people who are looking to maybe make a little bit of a difference now in their eating habits, what's the best way around to start to get to introduce yourself then to more of a natural way of eating healthier foods?
Yeah, it is a difficult one. I do quite a lot of work out. As I say, I've worked a lot in disadvantaged communities. And so what I try to do is make things as fun as possible and as easy as possible. And do things like making a homemade pizza, which is really fun, and you can get the whole family involved in and put different things on the toppings that you like. But you've made the base from scratch and made the tomato sauce, put some toppings on, and then some cheese. And so it's all good ingredients, and it's something that people recognize and like. Making things like, spaghetti bolognese, but using more vegetables, carrots and mushrooms and maybe some peppers and things in there to make it, just to kind of boost the fruit and veg intake, and using less meat, that sort of thing. Just trying to do things simply and fun, and things that start off with things that people like.
Yeah, because if it's for the family, that all of the family members need to be okay with it, because there's nothing worse, and it doesn't have to be kids that are going to turn their nose up at it. It could be a partner or an older member of the family, etc. Because eating habits they can be very ritualistic in families, and a lot of thought around what people eat and what is considered to be what we eat. People identify with it. So, these little changes can sometimes have a little bit of a comeback with other family members.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, absolutely. I think it's important not to sort of jump in at the deep end, because it's quite I know things like I eat quite a lot of, I make kimchi and kefir and the fermented problems. And I've just got some sauerkraut that I'm making at the moment, and that's something that the gut, it is really great for our guts, but you can't have too much too soon. You've got to start with small amounts. So I think with anything, any changes that you make, just small changes, and getting, people get kind of used to, as you say, like eating's very realistic. So making those small changes, it's all heading in a good direction. And I think one of the main things is, when I give people advice, it's really important that we enjoy our food, and it's not a chore, and it's not, oh my God, I've got to eat that and I really don't like it. It's actually our guts are more responsive if we are enjoying the food, and we're, it's that sitting down and eating and appreciating our food is one of my top 10 tips when I advise people with, just generally, these are the things that you can do to start with, and that's one of the main ones.
Excellent, thank you. I've got into the habit of sprinkle. I'm not really a fan of fermented food. I actually don't like the taste very much. Well, I can eat sauerkraut, but things like kimchi, it's just something with the fermentation. I just don't like the taste. But what I have been doing is, when I'm serving my food up, is sprinkle a little bit of apple cider vinegar with the mother on it. And I found that that's been quite useful, and it's helped with my skin as well. My skin's a lot clearer because of it. So, and it is the only change I've made, so I can kind of see where that's coming from. But what I'd love to hear about as well from you is the importance of water for gut health. Um, is that something that you'd advocate? Because I'm a not necessarily caffeine. I don't really drink normally naturally decaffeinated teas and coffee, but what was your take on water and gut health?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important that we're properly hydrated, and the kind of lining of our gut walls needs to have the correct right amount of moisture, and the water also helps with the passage of food through the digestive system. You can become constipated if you don't have enough water. Now, for a lot of people, drinking water is quite difficult, and I know lots of people that they're drinking lots of sugary drinks. So how do you get somebody who likes to drink Coca-Cola to then drinking water? Well, I mean, things like even wheat cordials is a good start, even though there's quite a lot of sugar in there. It's a lot better. It's a lot better. It's a better alternative than full sugar Coca-Cola. Things like putting a squeeze of lemon in there, or herbal teas and things like that. It's a good way of trying to increase people's water intake and make sure that they are properly hydrated.
Absolutely. And I've heard as well the phrase that all water isn't equal. And sometimes the water, depending on where people live, of course, around the world, some people are naturally used to drinking bottled water. I was away just recently on my holidays, and nobody was drinking water out of the tap because we were bored. Everybody was drinking masses of bottled water because it was hot as well. What do you think? What's your take on tap water, bottled water? Is there anything that you would say as preference is the best type of water to drink?
Well, I just think we're very lucky in this country in that we can drink the tap water. What I tend to do is I boil it and then cool it and drink it when I can. Can't always do that, but I don't really ever buy bottled water unless I'm somewhere that I can't drink the tap water, or somewhere that I'm new to and I'm maybe not used to the tap water there. So yeah, I think and it's expensive by having to buy bottled water. It isn't necessary. People have filters as well. The filter jugs, they're pretty good, but it's yeah, we are very privileged, I think, in this country. I think people worry about the fluoridation, but I think it's sort of set at a safe level. I'm not aware. I know there's a bit of a debate about it, but I'm not aware that it's dangerous for us.
Yeah, I think also as well, if you're talking about the filtered water, that can be good. What would you say to somebody like me? I really don't like the taste of water on its own. And I know about lemon juice and stuff, but my go-to, right, is like a naturally decaffeinated tea like rooibos, redbush tea, or decaffeinated coffee. And I drink quite a lot of that type of thing is fluid, throughout the day. And it's obviously the kettle's always been boiling because as it's that's how you make your cup of tea. Is that okay? Would you say that plain water is better, or am I okay with the fluid that I'm drinking through that way rather than drinking it all in just big glasses of water on its own?
Absolutely, it's okay. Yeah. I'm not too sure about the decaffeinated coffee. I think if you are balancing that out with things like your rooibos tea and maybe other herbal teas, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I did notice, actually, interestingly enough, when I started to increase, when I finished working in the corporate world, I mean, I'm amazed looking back. I hardly used to drink anything. Literally, probably one little tiny plastic cup of water from the big sort of thing that you got with a tap on it in the morning, maybe one in the afternoon, and a sort of an awful sludgy thing from the machine, and that would be it. And what I realized is that in the corner of my eyes, there were little blood vessels that were there. And once I embarked on a proper hydration routine, those blood vessels disappeared. It was, I think there was something to do with the fact that I was dehydrated. I think I must have been dehydrated for years. I mean, like years. Um, I don't know if it's in your remit, but have you come across the effects of what happens with long-term dehydration in people? Because I swear to goodness that I didn't drink enough for pretty much all my life.
I think our bodies are really amazing at adapting, and to a certain point. So I would imagine that at some point you would have maybe started getting headaches, or there would have been a warning sign that would have made you realize, okay, yeah, and maybe that, you know, the little blood vessels in your eyes was that. And maybe the next stage of that, if you hadn't taken notice of it, would have been something else, like the headaches or something. Because it is, your body does need water, but then adapts to situations for a period of time, and then it goes, actually, no, come on, we need to do something about this. So you became aware of it, and then as you started, as you know, you've said you're sort of drinking more of the sort of rooibos tea now. How long was it that you weren't
Oh,
drinking
I
more?
think it was for most of my life, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, issues with the water. I think that, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I remember, right, my parents. I grew up in an era where we still had cups and saucers, even without mugs. Water was never really drunk. It was all cups of tea. They lived off cups of tea. But then again, it was only a cup of tea, one in the morning, one of about 11, maybe one at lunchtime, that's one in the tea time, and then in your evening meal. I mean, the other thing is, I just wonder if, with all the radio waves, all the Wi-Fi waves, all of these things, that they're drying out the atmosphere. Because now it seems that we have to drink loads more water. So I don't know if there's something that I can't see or feel necessarily that's drying things out, that's dehydrating us more. I don't know.
You might have something, I'm not sure about that, but you know, water does help us to flush toxins out. So if there are more toxins in the atmosphere, then you know, water is one of the best ways to try and flush that out of our systems.
Very interesting. Well, I'm just looking at the time and it looks like we're closing. I could talk to you all day. It's brilliant. So thank you. You've given such amazing wisdom and insight to everybody, including myself. It's just been really interesting listening to you. I'm sure that people will want to be in touch. Have you got some contact details? We'll put them in the show notes as well. But how do people get in touch with you, Kay?
So I have to try and remember the email address. So it's hello at theguthealthgurus.co.uk. That's
Lovely.
our email address.
Oh, that's fantastic, Kay. Well, thank you ever so much. And as I say, for anybody that is listening, wanting to make small change, be in touch with Kay, big changes as well. And when we think about the importance of our gut health influencing our mindset, influencing our moods, etc., influencing our energy levels and our concentration levels, there's so much that we haven't covered. I think that it's great that we can think about it a little more and be kind to our guts and help ourselves to be the best that we can be in any given moment. So thanks ever so much, Kate. It's been great. And see everybody soon on another edition of Sphere of Being. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, people. Okay, take care. Bye now. Bye.